Hey there! Welcome to What a Feminist Looks Like, a channel where I discuss the relationship between fashion and feminism. This time I'm going to discuss the steel engraving lady. Quickly though, let's address her name. I know it's weird, but there is a reason for it. Steel engraving is a technique used to print illustrations. She's called the steel engraving lady because that is how her image was distributed and made popular in American culture. Okay, so what exactly was the steel engraving lady, you may ask? She was this beauty standard, a Victorian ideal for women. This ideal, as described by Lois Banner in her book American Beauty, which describes different beauty standards that have existed in the United States, the steel engraving lady is someone who had a rather demure manner. The ideals for women to have were really pale skin, small hands, petite mouths, small noses, and small feet as well. These were signs of nobility and gentility that were very aristocratic in nature, and this is why it is a rather Victorian ideal. The steel engraving lady was described in the Atlantic Monthly article, The Steel Engraving Lady and the Gibson Girl, as kind of stuck in the old times, not really so modern, and almost kind of like that old grandma of yours who always thinks like that she's in the 50s and 60s still, but it's 2016 now. So that kind of relationship. The steel engraving lady seemed very judgmental of the Gibson girl being someone who was free, who was out of the house, not taking care of children, not doing her wifely duties, and these kind of things. Steel engraving lady was rather old-fashioned and was this ideal for women to always be in the home, be very presentable for their husband, but also not do too much, and also just to always have children and make sure like that area of their lives, that was their duty, that was their life. So you may be wondering why I'm talking about someone who isn't that feminist really, and the reason is that the steel engraving lady was the ideal and the beauty standard that dress reformers wanted to move away from and have women not uphold anymore or want to be anymore, because it rather limited them to just have this idea that they had to be in the house always, not be their own person aside from their husband and their children, and that they wanted women to be active and part of society. And that's why the steel engraving lady is important in this whole discussion about the relationship between fashion and feminism, because she kind of helped spark it, even though she wasn't feminist to begin with. Alright, so there's two main reasons that it remained and was such a popular ideal of its time. The first one is that young women who wanted to have this ideal, become this steel engraving lady, or at least have her beauty and her beauty elements. This ideal was consistently in their books, their magazines, everything that they read and everywhere they looked around. This ideal was everywhere. So why would you think anything else if that's all you're surrounded with? The second reason, it had kind of a class orientation to it. If you were able to achieve this standard, it meant that you were of middle to upper class, because people in the lower class didn't have pale skin. They had very tan skin, weathered hands, bigger features generally. Because they had to do more manual labor, they were outside more often, and they also had more issues with getting food, so they weren't always able to maintain like this very small petite figure as women, because if you were doing a lot of manual labor, you had to eat a lot also to maintain that kind of physical output. And with that, we are done with the steel engraving lady, and I hope that you really enjoyed it. You should give this video a thumbs up, leave me a comment below. I will link the articles that I talked about below as well in the description box. I think that you should also go subscribe to my channel and look at my previous video on the corset. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Bronwyn, and this is What a Feminist Looks Like.